إنك يسمع إنك لا تسمع. What is the? My mind is getting blank now. Number 81. من يؤمن بآياتنا وهم مسلمون. إن not نسمع. No, not there is no mota here. Number 81. You will only cause those to hear who believe in our signs. We have 4 huffaz sitting in the audience. They're all blanked out, including myself. Innaka. I'm telling you the verse, Naml 81. I want to know it because I myself am stumped right now. He's looking up Naml 81. We have 7 iPads, 4 iPhones, 3 real Musshabs, and we're still waiting.
What's the
Naml 81. You'll get it. No, وما أنت بهذا العمي ضلال. إن تسمع إلا من يؤمن بآياتنا فهم مسلمون. Right? إن تسمع إلا من يؤمن بآياتنا. The only people that you can make to hear are those who will believe in our signs. What is the hearing here? Those who follow Islam. Not the hearing just to physically hear. So they have a verse in the Quran where they say, look, the hearing is a reference to hearing and following, not just hearing with the ears. Is that clear? You understand this point, right? The second interpretation is the dead in the Quran is not a physical death, but rather the spiritual death. إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. Al-Mawta is not the one who's dead. Al-Mawta is the one who's a kafir. And they have evidence for this as well, because Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-An'am, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that أَوَمَنْ كَانَ مَيْتًا فَأَحْيَيْنَاهُ. Give the example of the one who was dead and we gave him life. And the meaning here of death and life is kufr and Islam. So Allah calls the kafir mayyit. So another interpretation is إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. You cannot make the kafir hear you. This is another interpretation, right? Has nothing to do with the mawta there, right? Now the problem comes that with that interpretation is that Allah very explicitly says that وَمَا أَنْتَ بِمُسْمِعٍ مَنْ فِي الْقُبُورِ. In one ayah he says mawta, but in another ayah he says man fil qubur. And man fil qubur clearly means those who in the grave. That's very explicit, right? So in any case, that's how they interpreted the ayat of the Quran. Okay, camp number 2, Ash-Shawkani and others like him, Ibn Qudama, Al-Qatada, what did they say? They said that while it is true that mawta can refer to the kafir, in these verses it refers to the dead because of the verse that says man fil qubur, as I just said, right? That these verses they refer to the one in the grave. As for your point of saying the Quran talks about hearing of benefit, this can be refuted through Surah Fatir verse 14. They bring another evidence from the Quran. Surah Fatir verse 14, where Allah says in the Quran, إن تدعوهم لا يسمعوا دعاءكم ولو سمعوا ما استجابوا لكم ويوم القيامة يكفرون بشرككم ولا ينبئك مثل خبير. Allah is talking about all of the false entities that you call out, all of the false gods, Allat, Al-Uzza, Manat, Jesus Christ, Jibreel, the angels. They're calling them daughters of God, right? And they call them out. What does Allah say? When you call them, لا يسمعوا دعاءكم, they can't even hear you. ولو سمعوا, even if they could hear, ما استجابوا لكم, they couldn't have the power to respond. So the reference is very clearly, they can't even hear when you call out. Only Allah is as-Sami'. When you say, oh Jesus, He cannot hear you. When you say, oh Allat, and Allat was a human being. We did this in Aqidah class. Allat was a human being, right? The five false gods of Nuh were human beings, right? That وَقَالُوا لَا تَذَرُنَّ آلِهَةً وَلَا تَذَرُنَّ وَدًّا وَلَا سُوَاعًا وَلَا يَغُوثَ وَيَعُوقَ وَنَصْرَ. These 5 were human beings, right? And the Arabs would worship them up until the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So Allah is saying they were human beings.
But they weren't gods when they were human beings. They were gods afterward.
But they were humans. They're dead. And so Allah is saying they cannot hear you when you call them out. They're in the grave. Right?
The idols, not the actual person.
The idols were humans in the beginning. And the same goes for Jesus Christ. The same goes for Jesus Christ. The same goes for anything that is worship. It's an unconditional ayah that when you make dua to them, إِن تَدْعُوهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُوا دُعَاءَكُمْ. They cannot even hear you. وَلَوْ سَمِعُوا. Even if they could hear you, مَا اسْتَجَابُوا لَكُمْ. They couldn't even respond. وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَكْفُرُونَ بِشِرْكِكُمْ. And on the day of judgment, they will do kufr of your shirk. يَكْفُرُونَ بِشِرْكِكُمْ. You did shirk, they will say we have nothing to do with this shirk that you have done. They will do kufr of your shirk. And this shows us the reference is to entities like Jesus Christ. Because only Jesus and the righteous will يَكْفُرُونَ بِشِرْكِكُمْ. Right. So that's a very explicit verse from the other camp. Now another evidence that they have, how do you explain all of these ahadith? As for the incident of Badr, they say this is the strongest evidence against you and not for you. They changed the incident 180 degrees. How so? They say Umar questioned, how could these people hear when they're dead? The Prophet ﷺ did not correct him and say, Ya Umar, the dead can hear. What are you talking about? Rather, he made an exceptional case. Oh Umar, innahum al-an, right now, this group can hear me just as well as you can. An exception in time and in place and in people. And he didn't say, oh Umar, why are you asking such a question? Don't you know the dead can hear? You see the difference between the two responses, right? He made a very clear exception that they are hearing me right now just as well as you can. Right? And this clearly shows that Umar understood the Quran correctly. إِنَّكَ لَا تُسْمِعُ الْمَوْتَى. And now he's questioning, how can you speak? And the Prophet is not correcting that misunderstanding because it is not a misunderstanding. It's a correct understanding. And the Prophet is simply saying, this is a miracle, basically. Special time and place. How about the other evidences? The issue of the footsteps. The dead can hear the one in the burial going back. Once again, the Prophet ﷺ is making an exceptional time and place. That this is not any person who visits him. This is at the time of burial. And we know in authentic ahadith that the ruh will come back to the grave right now for Munkar and Nakir. Right? The ruh will come and be reunited with the body in the alam al-barzakh to respond to Munkar and Nakir. So the Prophet is basically telling us at that point in time, the footsteps of those who walk back, those footsteps on the top of the ground, they will be heard by the one in the grave. Not conversations, not hello, hi, how are you doing? Rather, just the reverberations from the top of the grave for that period of time when the soul is reunited with the body. Once again, there is a clear exceptional clause that makes logical sense. As for the issue of the Prophet ﷺ going to Baqi' and saying Assalamu alaikum ahla qawmi min al-muslimin al-mu'minin, yes, he did say Assalamu alaikum, but this is the salam of dua and not the salam of tahiyyah, i.e. this is a dua he's making for the dead and not a greeting of Salamu alaikum. Because Assalamu alaikum literally means may Allah's peace be upon you. So he is saying Assalamu alaikum and he means it. He's making dua for them. Where did you get that the dead can hear from this? There's no evidence at all that he is saying may Allah's peace be on you, O people of the grave. And there's no evidence here that the dead can hear. And that's actually very valid, that from this hadith you don't get anything about the dead hearing. As for the
Salam hadith,
yeah, but there's no evidence of hearing is my point. As for the hadith of the dead person recognizing the one who says salam to him, we said this is weak, and pretty much every scholar of hadith who studies hadith says it is weak. As for Amr ibn al-As and his wasiyyah to his children, we say this is his interpretation. The Prophet did not tell him to do it, and some of the sahaba, Aisha and Umar, are authentically reported to have denied the dead can hear. So this seems to be from the Sahaba's time. As for the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, that the angels come and give him salams, once again this is a very explicit evidence against and not for. Because if the Prophet ﷺ could hear directly, he wouldn't need the angels to go tell him. The very fact that an angel has to convey the salam indicates what? He cannot hear. And Allah is telling an angel to go convey the salam. And by the way, this is a common misunderstanding. It doesn't matter whether you're in front of the grave or whether you are in America. The angel will go in to give him the salam. Visiting the grave of the Prophet, of course, it's an emotional experience, it's an iman builder, of course. But in terms of how your salam will get to him, it's all going to be from the angels, right? How your salam will get to him. So, you being in front of the grave versus you being in America, the angel will go and tell him. Therefore, if even the Prophet requires an angel, what does this show about? The salam that can be heard, it cannot be heard. Therefore, in my humble opinion, one of the few things I would disagree with Ibn Taymiyyah about, in my humble opinion, it does seem to be that the dead cannot hear. And Allah knows best. We shouldn't be too strict about this issue because some of the sahaba had the other opinion. And it is true to say that many scholars held the position that the dead can hear the one who visits them. Many scholars held this position, right? So the main point that we need to emphasize before moving on, this is a theoretical issue. لا ينبني عليه عمل, as they say. No action is derived from this. It's a theoretical issue. By unanimous consensus, you don't go to the grave and start having a conversation or start asking the dead for your needs, which is shirk, right? Or such jahala you see sometimes in the Muslim world, when somebody is buried, somebody's going to stand there and say, oh so and so, Munkar and Nakir are going to come. Make sure you say that Allah is your Lord. Now you pause for a melodramatic effect. Now say that the Prophet is your Prophet. Then you pause again. Now say that, this is jahala. Wallahi, it's complete stupidity. Who are you to answer on his behalf? I mean, do you really think he needs you to be telling him? And they call this talqeen al-mayyit, right? In many cultures and societies, you will have this talqeen al-mayyit, right? And wallahi, you just wonder how foolish people are. You really think that at this point in time, he can cheat on his exam, right? Because that's what's happening, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're going to cheat on your exam, that somebody's shouting the answer for you, and just because you're shouting, you're going to give the answer. And you really wonder at the mentality of these people. So, what I'm trying to say is, even if you say that the dead can hear in the grave, there's no action that will come from that. There's no action that will come from that. That's just a theoretical issue, and the evidences are, frankly, strong on both sides. Nonetheless, from this incident of Badr, we'll get back to the incident of Badr, what did the Prophet ﷺ say? That I swear by the one in whose hands is my soul, O Umar, they can hear me right now just as well as you can. Honestly, what do you learn from this, or what do you glean from this, except that this is an exception? Wallahi, this is what comes to my mind. This is an exception for these people, that Umar himself was amazed and the Prophet ﷺ did not correct his amazement. Rather, he simply said, they can hear me at this time just as well as you can. In any case, that's an issue of aqeedah. I wanted to go into that tangent. Now we get back to the issue of the incident of Badr. Now, another thing that took place in these 3 days before the Prophet ﷺ returned, so he still camped at the Battle of Badr. The next incident that occurred was the issue of the spoils of war. What is to be done with all of this is called ghanima, because they've never actually been in a battle before where they captured ghanima. They've never actually caught ghanima before. And we know for a fact from the Quran and Sunnah that the previous